It is the appointed time for our meeting, so I would like to call the Budget Committee to order. Wanting to remind the commissioners to please turn on your microphones so that everyone can hear you. Do we have any visitors wishing to address the committee?
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stephens Road. I'd like to thank Dr. Perry. He's provided me with the budget, the school budget scanned that was given to you all last Thursday. Of course, I sent an email. I don't know if the mayor or anybody has bothered to put it on the county website. And I also had asked about the nonprofit book being put on the county website. Not just a list of what you're giving people, but the book that contains what that entity does, what they've done in the past, what their budget is, what they're spending their money on, salaries and projects and other things like that. So I would like to again ask that. Of course, I asked it last year, and no, it wouldn't be put on the county website, even though it's many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I reiterate that request. You all have the power. You can do it if you want to, and I hope you will. I understand several handouts tonight, right before the meeting, right before the vote. I was able to get one of them that Ms. Bowman had an extra. The other item with your blue design on it, nothing for the public. I don't know exactly who you think you work for, or, well, I know pretty much who's in charge. The person that controls the information and controls when you get it and how you get it, and controls if the public gets it or not. And I ask you again to think about the public, the people that elected you. Please provide information. Please provide it timely. And if you don't get it timely, don't vote. Thank you.
Do we have any other visitors wishing to address the committee?
My name is Gwendolyn Holden. I live at 8150 West Point Drive. I only have one thing to say. What if the taxpayers quit paying their taxes? What would you do then?
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the committee? Seeing none in old business, we have none. In new business, we have the school department deliberations. Mayor Bill Britton.
Commissioners, tonight what we will, I guess, address is one is an idea to fund the school system and their request, and then to show you some changes that have taken place in the general fund, and a change in the local government grant allocation, what we're proposing. So that's kind of what we'll talk about tonight. To start the school talk, this was in the original, this slide was in the original budget overview, just the history of the maintenance of effort. It just shows back, I think, 7 years to where the maintenance of effort was. And the 1920 and 2021 with the asterisk, that just shows that there's $200,000 in addition to that of non-recurring funding. So that's why there's the asterisk there. I've asked Dr. Perry and Tracy just to start things off with just an explanation, kind of a maintenance of effort 101. Just, what happens if revenue doesn't come in at 27,000 or 27,156,000? What happens, and what does that mean to the commission as a funding body? I've asked them to start that, and then we'll go into the rest of it.
Chairman, members of the commission, it can be very complicated, but also it can be very simplistic. That if you don't collect that money, then you're not obligated to provide us that money. So you've got to collect it before the maintenance of effort kicks in. Now, there's a lot of things associated with that, but it could actually be that simple. You've got to collect the money before you're obligated to do the maintenance of effort. So I know that the thing that the commission's concerned about, and something I think that every financial body needs to be committed to and focused on, that what would happen if we experience a recession as we did back in 2007, 2008. And when that happens, when you don't collect, then you're not obligated to that particular amount. Now, we still got to do some things on our end, but in terms of what you do, you've got to collect the money before you're obligated to appropriate that. So, Sandra, you want to say anything else to that? Or? Yeah. So,
Mayor Britton was saying about an example, give an example. So I guess I was back here, as was Mayor Britton, in the last recession, 08, 09, for that 5 or 6 year period where our sales tax declined. During that period, we fell short, as I said, about 5 or 6 years on local revenue. When that happened, the commission was not required to fund that amount, even though we budgeted that amount on the front end. What happens in that instance is the school system is required to take that amount from our undesignated fund balance and set it aside in a reserve that can be used for one-time non-recurring expenditures. But that's the extent of what happens if we actually don't collect that revenue.
So, and I think the situation that I think that's important to understand is that as we go through these years, and you can see that your maintenance of effort would go up, but you would think that it would, because each year, you know, we try to give our folks at least a step increase. We try to give folks a little bit of raise, just like you do county employees. And if we continue to do that, that means each year we've got to have a little bit more in that, or, you know, we're reducing staff, and if we lose enrollment, we'll do that. But each year you'd think it would go up because electricity, gas, fuel, you know, everything is going to go up. And so in that, if we're going to operate the schools, there would be an increase in funding. But the piece that I think that's the fail-safe for the commission, just like Tracy said, when the recession hit in 2007, 2008, we didn't get the amount of money in, then you're not obligated to do that. So same thing right now, and I think the thing that I think that many of you may be concerned about, that Mayor Britton's concerned about, is sales tax right now is a lot more than what we anticipated. I think when we were all here a year ago, we were real concerned about the budgets on everything. Now, the school district even really budgeted way back on some things. But it seemed almost insane that the sales tax actually during this pandemic actually just increased dramatically. And a lot of that came from the stimulus money, which won't be there next year perhaps. And so if that money is compromised, then again, the commission's at the point to, if you don't collect it, you're not required to provide it. I think be cautious about how much you put into maintenance of effort, because that does have an impact on what you do. But at the same point in time, there should be a little bit of increase, just because if you're talking about a school district with 10,000 kids, 1,400 employees, to go up $200,000 every year is not really, you know, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, about giving people a little bit of raise, giving people insurance, giving folks the increase that buses would cost or vehicles would cost, or just all of that, that there's got to be some increase to that. And we just don't want to get so far behind that we can't be competitive with other counties in terms of bringing people in. So be responsible, but at the same point in time, there is a mechanism in place to where if you don't collect, you don't have to provide. It's written, do you need anything? Okay.
Any questions of Dr. Perry on that, or Tracy? I just wanted for you guys to hear that from them, just so that you have that understanding of maintenance
Let
of
me
effort.
ask a question first. We have two asterisks on the fiscal year 19 to 2020, and then 2020 to 2021. Non-reoccurring amount. What is that, two non-reoccurring amounts or one non-reoccurring amount?
It was $200,000 each year.
Okay,
So not cumulative,
Right.
just that you carried it over.
what, okay,
What we asked for on that year was that we asked, because that was the year that we were concerned that perhaps, last year, we were concerned, that sales tax, property tax, different things would be compromised to a certain degree. So what we ask is just level fund us. Just keep that 200,000 in, just so that we can maintain. The year before, what we said is we needed 200,000 just to make budget, but the commission was concerned that perhaps, you didn't want to increase that maintenance of effort, so we used the 200,000 to purchase some buses that we normally do, that's just in a regular cycle. And so we put 200,000 in then, back in 1920, and then in 2021, we just asked to just keep that 200,000 in just to level fund it. So it's not a cumulative 400,000, it's just the two.
That answer your question? Okay. All right, so just to start the conversation just wanted to set the baseline about maintenance of effort and where we are with the maintenance of effort for the Board of Education. In the presentation that you've got in front of you, here's an idea that I want to present to the committee is we've appropriated the $200,000 for 2 years on a non-recurring basis, is to add that to maintenance of effort. So you would add the $200,000 to maintenance of effort, make it $27,356,092. And then the amount of increase that was requested last week is you fund that as a non-recurring amount to be used for technology purchases. And so that would be $307,841. So if you look at, pull out this revenue spreadsheet, and just have it handy as we get to that. And the next part of it is by adding the 200,000 maintenance of effort, and then the 307,841 is non-recurring. That gives and with the sales tax collections the way that they have been, as well as the property tax collections, they've been over budget. You can look here in this spreadsheet. It shows you in the middle of the page is the 2021 budget amount for the various revenue lines, and then the line to the right shows you what we anticipate will be the collection for the year. Like current year property tax is we budgeted $12,320,000. We anticipate getting $12,656,000. In prior year taxes and delinquent taxes, we budgeted $390,000. We expect to get $379,000. If you look at the taxes collected clerk and master, we budgeted $180,000 and we expect to get $334,000. But if you go down to sales tax, we budgeted $14 million in sales tax. Actually, we budgeted less than we received the year before because of what Dr. Perry said was the unknowns about how would COVID impact sales. We didn't know at the time that there was going to be stimulus packages and that kind of thing. So our sales tax collections, we anticipate the $14 million budget collecting more than $16.3 million in sales tax. And so for the year, for this year that we're in now, we anticipate collecting about $3.1 million more than was budgeted for local revenue for schools. So that just gives you kind of a picture that for this year that we're in, what we see as far as revenue collections go. So if we add $200,000 to maintenance of effort, we add the $307,841 as a non-recurring expense. We still have, with the revenue stream that we have today, we still have the opportunity and the room to move some property tax pennies, which right now it's 80 cents on the tax rate goes to schools. We have an opportunity to move 9 cents to debt service, and that would finance about $22 million of a new elementary school. And Dr. Perry mentioned last week that they've kind of set aside $5 million of their federal stimulus money, or their ESSER money. So that would give them around $27 million to build a new elementary school.
Say 22 million?
That would finance $22 million. So that's what the proposal is, and now, next Monday, Dr. Perry will give, we've got it scheduled for him to open the committee meetings with a presentation on the new school plan. So, but in this meeting, we wanted to go ahead and talk about moving the pennies to set up the financing for a new school if you choose to finance it. So, so the idea that I'm proposing is add 200,000 to maintenance of effort, add 307,841 to non-recurring appropriation. That would give the school system their request, and then move 9 cents from the property tax from the school fund, from the general purpose school fund, to debt service.
You're talking about putting 200,000 on debt service?
No.
Plus the set 307?
No. Here, Wayne, look at this. Look at this just for a second. All right, the column on the left, that is the local funding for schools this year. Okay, you have 27,156,000. That's maintenance of effort this year that we're in, plus the 200,000 of non-recurring. Okay, that's this year. That's where we are today.
That's this
All
year,
right.
okay.
On the right side is your 27,356,000. That you add the 200,000 to the 27.1 million. That gives you the 27,356, and then the 307 is non-recurring.
Okay.
So now that goes to schools, not debt service. That's school. That's for the school system.
This is not the first time that we've moved money from their tax income to debt service. I think we did that on a smaller scale when they constructed the West High School Freshman Academy. I thought it was East High, but I believe it's the West High School Freshman Academy.
Mayor Britton, that would also restrict any funds from later being used to anything other than that for debt service. So that would go to the building of the school only, is that correct?
You could. Can we put that in the tax? Ann, can we put that in the tax resolution? I think we did with the 2 or 3 cents that we moved before.
Would it be prudent to do that?
If that's what you want to do, yeah.
Well, I think it ought to be restricted just for the schools.
Okay. So we can add that to the tax resolution that you guys pass. Now, the next slide it goes over what the tax rate would look like under this proposal. Is general fund stays at 62 cents. General purpose schools goes from 80 cents to 71 cents. General debt service goes from 34 cents to 43 cents. And then and all three of those tax rates are countywide, both inside the city and outside the city. And then the 21 cents for sanitation is just on property outside the city limits. So the total tax rate stays at 197.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. All right.
Point of order, I'd like to know exactly what we're approving.
Okay,
Just what the presentation is as far as the 200 for maintenance of effort, and, okay.
200 for maintenance effort,
And also,
307, and new, one time.
Can we
Non-recurring.
have a clarification? Do we vote on this?
We being,
Those that have
yeah, at the committee level, any commissioner that has,
right, we need to abstain from this.
right,
Yeah.
has a spouse working in the school system or works in the school system, has to abstain.
Yes, sir.
And at the committee level, it's majority of voters,
I do have one other question before
or
we vote.
majority of voters.
Dr. Perry had mentioned $5 million from ESSER funding. Is that solid? Is that good? I mean, is that going to be for sure there as far as putting toward your school idea?
We will actually submit that next month. Our board's looking at it tonight. We'll submit it. We've talked to state folks. It does not seem like it's a problem, but it's all federal review.
Sure.
If something were to happen, you guys would be first to know, but at this point, we don't really see a problem. There's been other projects that have been approved in this, and it seems like that they are relaxing some of those restrictions. So we
And
think that we're in good shape, but nothing's approved until it's approved.
Sure. And is that 5 million firm on your side?
Yes, I think that we are pretty firm on that, and it's definitely good for the renovation piece. I mean, if something were to happen, that things go that way, there's no doubt about that. The new construction is the only thing that is of a question, but we've sent an email to Deb Thompson at the state level. We didn't get any indication that it would not be.
Okay.
So
Thank you, sir.
we'll know that next month.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Eileen Arnlo,
Yes.
Chris Cutshaw,
Abstain on calls.
Randy DeBoer,
Yes.
Tim Goins,
Aye.
Bobby Hahn,
Abstain.
Tim Horner,
Abstain?
Wayne D. Smith,
Yes.
Howard Shipley,
Yes.
Jim Stepp,
Yes.
Taylor Ward, and
Motion passes.
3 abstain, 4 absent.
Okay, next is some adjustments to the general fund. One item that Commissioner Stepp asked us to look at was pay increases for part-time employees. And we have 30, how many?
Counting every one of that what got added to, it's 39.
Okay, 39 part-time employees, and what we're suggesting is that there be a one-time payment instead of a percentage increase to their pay rates. And a $300 one-time payment would cost the county $13,745. A $500 payment, if you choose to do $500, would be $22,900. So those are the two amounts that we worked with. You gave a $250 one-time payment in January to the part-time employees. So that we do need, our plan for Thursday is to come back with updated, all the funds, their budgets updated, so you as a committee can make recommendations to the commission. And we would need a decision on this tonight, or, well, we would prefer a decision tonight on this, on either one of these amounts,
If you,
so we can include it.
what would the difference be if you give them a straight 3%, like all the other employees?
Well, I would have to refigure that. I'm not sure it'd be, the amounts. Probably it would be, probably this adds up to more than the 3%. The reason being is that so many of our part-time folks work really variable schedules. So you have a few people who might get a 3% increase, but it would be very, very few dollars for them. Then we have some others that work more under very varying circumstances. So we have to talk to each department head to figure out how they will distribute it.
Need to do
How it
that,
becomes just more
We
complicated.
need to do that, don't we? Need to find out for
That'd be a
sure.
recurring, if we
This-
get a 3%
now-
raise, that'd be.
This is-
a lot
That's
more.
recurring. And some people that work a few hours, you have, I'm trying to think of some specific circumstances, you have some attendants in juvenile that they come in when they're needed, but they may only get a very few number of hours in a year. So this would be have very little impact. And this, for most people, has a bigger impact. We have two, I'm going to give you more detail than you want, but we have two employees that work a lot of hours, and like Cindy Lane in archives. She works a set number of hours. We put her in to get the 3% because that's worth more to her than the one time. For most people, this one time is just worth more.
It's more than they'd get, it's a lot more than they'd get at the 3% if they're just working
Yeah.
part-time.
Yes, yes.
What's your suggestion?
Well, mine,
Yeah.
I think one of the one-time payments is really a better way for these folks to show that to see that they've been appreciated and to have some money in their pocket. This gives them enough to do something at one time. Whereas a percentage with a little bit that some of them get, I mean, we're talking a couple of dollars sometimes.
I'll make a motion, we do the 300. Motion for 300, do we have?
Wait a minute, what, motion for what amount?
The 300.
300?
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I'd like to say something real quick. Teresa West uses a lot of part-timers, and they generate a lot of money for this county. And so I'm glad we're doing this.
And we also, for part-time employees that average 25 hours a week or more, and to qualify for health benefits, it's 30 hours. For part-time who average over 25 hours a week, we do provide them, I think it's 6 visits to the employee health clinic. So they do have a health benefit.
They don't get full coverage.
Right.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Randy, we brought this up about the sheriff's department, where ESCO was wanting 10%, and we voted on 3%. If it was my money, I'd give the people in that jail that works in correction officers more money, but don't give it to everybody else. I don't know if you can do that or not, but I can't see giving it to, say we went 10%. If you go 10%, it's gonna be for everybody. But if you go, say 10% just for the correction officers and leave the detectives at 3%, the colonels and the majors and the lieutenants, leave theirs at 3%. You see what I'm talking about, Bill? Just for the correction officers, because we're short on correction officers now.
Well, I think if you left the ESCO to give the correction officers a raise.
It's what?
You left the ESCO to give the correction officers a raise?
Well, no, he asked for 10% across the board, so that's what he's
everybody.
going for everybody, so. Can you do that, Bill?
If it's within, I would have a conversation with him about it. It would just, he can do it if the money's there. But it would cause a lot of problems across the county.
Because I can see the new jail, if you don't have correction officers now, you're probably not gonna have them in the new jail. So
Well,
you're gonna have,
And
it's a
we're
lot
not,
more of them.
and we're not the Lone Ranger when it comes to having turnover in the jail. I was in a meeting with some other county mayors today, and they brought that up, is turnover in the jail. I mean, that's the nature of corrections. And the state has the same problem at state prisons, and but yeah. I mean, we've worked on, just in January, when we made the pay adjustments, we worked on across the board for the sheriff's department, adjustments more than what the other departments got, including corrections officers.
I think the governor, he took that correction officers, like you say, for the prisons, and give them more money.
Right.
So he split it off between the guards and the correction officers, people downstairs, or people in the prison watching over them.
Right.
We've got to do something to get them up there. I don't know what it's gonna be, so.
What's the average pay of a entry level in the jail or like that? What is the average? Do you know?
Starting pay, I think, is $13.50.
As we move forward, I can see what Wayne is speaking of, that we can maybe do something, but we need to include administrative people with this before we arbitrarily make a decision of increasing, not knowing the repercussions, what it would have across the board. I mean, we need to sit down and do that, not just see what he says. But don't you think when we have this new facility, however it turns out being, it's going to be easier to have some employees.
It'll be a safer
It'll be a
environment
safer,
than it
better
is today.
environment, and,
Yeah.
and we'll know a little bit more then as well.
Yeah.
And Mayor Britton, didn't we do a study a few years ago to get everything corrected to the standard levels across what would be equivalent to other communities that are around us?
And we implemented that in January.
Yeah.
So there was a study done of various counties, larger, smaller, same size, and our pay scale is generally in the middle of the range. And unfortunately, who we have to compete against is at the top of the range, and with the city of Morristown. And so we've got to compete against that. So some of the adjustments made in January addressed that issue. We had some employees that got, and they were sheriff's department employees, and rightfully so, got between 7.5% and 10%. But we did that to catch up with our sheriff's department. And so this 3% adds to that, and then next year we'll look at it again. Or that's the plan right now.
To not hold the budget up, we can still go with the budget that we have and come back and look at that and add that to that if we need to be. Is that
We could
that
do
possible?
that. We could do that. What I would prefer is that we look at it once, let's see how our revenues are coming in and see the impact of
Agree.
one option is, and some counties are looking at this, is with the American Rescue money, there is the option of paying essential employees lack of a better word, a bonus. And so who you define as essential is, I don't know that, they give some guidance on that, but not a whole lot. Public safety is a large part of it. And But then there's also, I mean, what about the employees that are on the front lines at the customer counters? You know, that kind of thing. So what we could look at during that process, when we get to that point, is a one-time payment of that money to employees. But we'll have a whole laundry list of items for that money. So,
Is that the money that the government's gonna give us that we don't know what all we can use it for
Right.
yet?
right, yeah.
We don't know that probably Wednesday.
We hopefully will get some more guidance on Wednesday from the comptroller's office.
Okay.
The next item is, in the original budget in draft one, there were no pay increases for the elected officials. And the way elected official pay increases are determined, and really the whole compensation structure for elected officials, it's based on, the minimum is based on population. And the state has a scale that counties of this population class have to pay X dollars, you know, lower and upper, there's less or more. And then the increases are based on what state employees received the previous year. So when we put the budget together initially, the legislature had not funded a pay raise for state employees for this current fiscal year, which means next fiscal year, which is the budget we're working on, elected officials don't get a pay increase. But what happened during the last week, I think, of the legislature is they gave state employees a 2% increase effective January 1. They retroed it back to January 1. So what that does is that triggers a 2% increase for elected officials for next year. So that will cost about $23,000. And that will be in, we'll break it out, and that'll be in draft 2 that we'll have for you on Thursday.
Is that to catch them up on last year where they wasn't getting it, and now since they put that 2% back in?
It's because state employees got it, the elected officials got it. It's all based on what state employees get. So there's no votes needed on that, Mr. Chairman. We also have added in, we have an intern. Now we started, what's today, Tuesday? Started yesterday, Ryan? Wave your hand. This is Ryan Wheeler. He's the intern who is started yesterday, and he's going to be Jeff's understudy on the video taping of the meetings, and then also working on the project that the Rules Review Committee had initiated, and that was to go through the minutes back to 1990 and pull out any resolutions, compile all the resolutions that deal with commission operations. And so he started that project yesterday and today. So Ryan's on board. He works 28 hours a week. And so we will have a budget amendment for you on Monday for the weeks that the hours he works in June this fiscal year. And then this includes he's working 8 weeks, the internships for 8 weeks, 4 in June, 4 in July, and then this will take care of July, and then also next spring when we have an intern next spring. So this is something that I would like for us to do every year, and is have an intern to do some projects for us that we can't get to. So, Mr. Chairman, I would, for us to add this to the budget, I'd like for the committee to vote on this funding.
Do we have a motion to?
So moved.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mayor Britton, is there other funding that helps support that task? Do we get any funding anywhere else? There's no
No.
grants right
No.
Okay. All right. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is just it's been some miscommunication between me and the city of Morristown as far as library funding, and I just wanted to bring it. It doesn't affect the numbers as far as what's in the budget, but I wanted to be sure that my message was clear and nobody would think that I'd try to mislead the commission. At the overview meeting, the very first meeting, we talked about increasing the library funding. It was my understanding that, based on a conversation with the city, is that we were behind the city in funding the library. And I was a little confused about it, but didn't go into the detail. And what we've discovered is that we're not behind the city in funding the library. We are both right now funding the library at $293,500, both of us. Now, a couple of years ago, when they had some plumbing issues and they dug up the parking lot, and there had to be some paving done and some work done and some expansion of the parking lot, and there's a letter from the library at your desk, and if you turn to the back of it, there's a history of funding of the library. You can see in 1920, that was the year that the parking lot, the plumbing and the parking lot work was done. We funded that during the budget time at what the estimate was at that time, what the quote was at that time, and it came in higher when they bid the project. The city funded half, so a little more than we did, the $2,200 more. So that's the difference in any funding between us. And I think where the miscommunication is the way that the city staff read our audit reports is they didn't see where we had funded the $6,200 out of capital rather than out of the library line. We paid for it out of another line. Anyway, it was miscommunication. And I just want you guys to know that. Now, all right, so right now, today, we fund the library evenly at $293,500. Now, what the library has asked for, in this letter from the library board, the director and the treasurer talks about an increase. The library has asked for $12,875 new dollars from both bodies. So over $25,000 total. So $12,875. So that is the request. Now, what we recommended in the budget and what is in the budget now is $8,450, which is what the committee approved at the 2 meetings ago. So what the city finance committee has decided is they'll fund at the level the county funds. So I still recommend that we increase the funding at the library. I think that shows in the survey that was done that the citizens value the library and the services that it provides. The library over the last several years they use a lot of part-time employees, and they have fewer full-time employees than they had several years ago, and for funding purposes, they've gone to part-time employees because of benefits. And so this would help them correct some of their staffing issues. So, but I would, if right now, as far as the budget stands, you've approved $8,450 increase. But I just wanted to bring this up and make sure we were clear that we are on the same level as the city, and the city has pledged to fund at whatever level we fund it. So. Any questions?
That was a request, but we're only funding.
We do not need a vote on that if it stays the same, correct?
Right. This is more for your information. Make sure I get my story clear. Okay, lastly is our liability insurance quote came in this week. It's up 1.9% or around $14,500. That'll be divided among general fund, highway, and sanitation. So countywide, all funds, it's up $14,500, and that's just for your information, so you'll know. And that'll be reflected in draft 2 that we give you on Thursday.
That go out for bid?
No, Wayne, we've had trouble finding companies that would insure us. And so this is Tennessee Risk Management Trust. It was basically the only organization that would insure us a couple of years ago.
What type of events did we have that brought us to that point?
Jail, it was jail cases. Okay, the last page is the local government grant, and just a couple of changes in what we proposed a couple of meetings ago. The Sheriff's Department, one thing the Sheriff's Department left, we failed they failed to bring to us, and after the budget meeting, a couple of budget meetings ago, they kind of reminded us and reminded themselves of a fingerprint machine that they need. They have a machine that's 7 years old. They're paying right now about $4,000 a year in maintenance costs. This cost of $27,000, this is a budget number. We'll bid it when the time comes, but $17,000 of it is maintenance for 5 years. So the rest is hardware and software, but a fingerprint machine is a necessity. And so what we did is we added the $27,000 for the fingerprint machine, and we took that from the dollars that we had allocated and that you had approved for the highway department. So we reduced the highway department capital purchases amount by $27,000 and added the fingerprint machine to the list. Any questions on that? Mr. Chairman, we do need a vote on that.
Do we have a motion to approve, to accept this?
So moved.
And second? Howard? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign?
Next, on Thursday is the day that we'll bring you the revised, it'll be draft 2 of the budget with all the revisions that have come about since we started the budget process, items that you voted on today, and others that you had voted, and if you will leave your budget books here, and that way we will, instead of passing out a bunch of paper and you guys replacing the tabs, we'll do it. Our staff has set aside some time Thursday to update the books, and Ann's been working very hard, and we appreciate her for what she's been doing to keep the budget updated and give you guys the best information. And so we'll have the new draft 2 for you on Thursday.
When are we gonna go over that last page? That's the state local government grant.
We just did. That was the fingerprint machine.
Okay, well, there's one on there that I wanna bring up. We're buying a sheriff 2 new pickups that's got 100,000 miles on it. One has got a new motor, but we want to buy the maintenance department a new, or $25,000 truck. Why don't we take those 2 trucks that the sheriff will be turning in when he gets his, and let maintenance use them?
We'll look at that. During the conversation the other day,
Yeah.
There was one thing, though, that needs to be mentioned. The one that had the motor replaced, they're keeping that truck.
Right.
They're not getting rid of that one. They're replacing an older one. They replaced an engine. They're keeping that truck. the one that they replaced.
There's two of them.
Yes, sir. But the one that you're speaking of with the new engine, they're keeping that one.
But they will surplus 2 vehicles.
And the one that you're talking about with the new engine was one that they were talking about maybe taking to the maintenance department.
That one with 100,000 miles on it, that's a good running truck, good operational truck, you know, could be turned
Maybe,
over too.
I'm just speaking of that one.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
I've got one question for you, Bill.
Okay.
It hit me after you went over it, but that general liability insurance increase of 1.9. I know it rarely ever goes down, but you know, you said we can't bid because of our situation right now, or we don't get a lot of vendors to come. So the other side of that, once we do have a new facility, is that possible that we get a better rate?
Then we have more options.
More options?
More
Maybe a better
options.
rate, put a competition out there, so in other words, that could help in this.
It will help.
Yes, sir.
It will.
The liability won't be as extreme.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it probably won't go down by the time we get that done, but yet maybe it can maintain.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Great.
Thank you. On the announcements, we've got the June 10th meeting, and that's all we have, so we are adjourned.